that's the part of corporate America that you're going to do an awful lot more traveling, probably more like, actually even more so than public accounting, public audit, excuse me. Government. I started listing these. So anybody, those of you going into government, any of you going into law enforcement, IRS, or FBI? Fantastic. Big need. Accountants and lawyers, particularly for the FBI. I have friends that I have worked with in consulting firms and large public accounting firms in the investigation space, right? I always bring them on a team because they're just, I was never law enforcement. So I get involved in fraud investigations and I follow the numbers, and they're able to apply the techniques they learned in law enforcement to be able to do, surveillance and they can they'll interview better than I could ever learn how to do. So so there's an aspect of it. The other part of it is there's a big need in the U.S. federal government, the USGAO, all the federal and state agencies. Tremendous amount of opportunity. When I was at a consulting firm when I came up here from St. Louis called Navigate Consulting. I was there for a couple of years, and our DC, we were going through the recession in Chicago, and our DC office was going gangbusters. So was our Austin, Texas office, and they're still going gangbusters. So there's a tremendous opportunity in both federal and state government. Not-for-profit. Anybody going straight for not-for-profit? Not-for-profits has a tremendous need for accounting professionals. As a fraud investigator, I will tell you that a very high percentage of especially small not-for-profits are exposed to fraud, are victims of fraud, because their internal controls are not up to speed, because they don't have the sophisticated controls, they don't have the sophisticated staff, they don't have the segregation of duties you see in bigger firms, etc. Think about, if you don't go directly to not-for-profit, think about that as a potential career opportunity as well. You can really be helpful, number one, and number two, you can have some social give back. If there's a cause that you're interested in, etc., it's a way for you to kill two birds with one stone. And consulting, I mentioned Navigate Consulting. There's some other folks here in the finance area. Big area of consulting right now was the bankruptcy and reorg. But the flip side of that, when you're not doing bankruptcy and reorg, is mergers and acquisitions. Those are some really fascinating fields. I've worked in both of those a little bit, touched them a little bit as well, and they're a lot of fun. They're very technical, and again, the finance people are great, but having the language of business and the language of accounting will help you in that area as well. And as I mentioned, and corporate investigations, and then industry specialists. I would be remiss if I didn't say, start thinking about how you can dive into an industry. And it's a very much of a matrix sort of a thought process, because you're going to want functional speciality, but you're also going to want to start thinking about specialization. We talked about small business, entrepreneurial, academia. All right, and I jumped ahead there too, so we're going right through these slides. All right, so you got your pathway. How many of y'all are juniors? How many seniors? Grad school? All right, none of the above? Okay, excellent. So I'm going to assume that very soon, perhaps you are already in transition, and you will be in transition. You will be trying to apply, and this is the future of work, so this is going to be consistent. You're making educated decisions about the market. You're making educated decisions about your skill set. You're seeing what offers are out there. You're seeing what the work is like. You're interviewing with different firms. You make a decision, you get an offer, hopefully, and you go to work. So now you're in. In today's world, I mentioned how fast it goes. It's going to be very important, I think, that you understand where you're at and start evaluating your expectations versus your experience. What did I think it was going to be like? Always sit back. And a lot of HR departments are great at this, but I think you have to own your own career and the marketing of yourself and the marketing of your brand, right? What is it that I'm doing right? What is it that I'm doing wrong? how is this experience what I thought it was going to be, and what's different, and why? And so that's something that you should continue to start to do. Start to think about your future path, particularly in light of the fact that, you know, I look back at the last 35 to 40 years of my career, and if you'd asked me if I was going to be doing what I'm doing today, I wouldn't know how to get there. So, but as each stage came along, and I gave you an anecdotal story about my background so you could see how I kind of applied and misapplied those sorts of things. This is one of the things that you need to do in your career. All right, that's pretty general, right? Well, I'm going to talk a little bit about what those opportunities are in the accounting profession and what I think they're going to be, because again, crystal ball, 50%, call me out in 10 years. Chris is going to have to buy me in 10 years. All right. Very, very important. If you're not happy doing what you're doing, you're gonna stink. You're just not gonna be good. I mean, maybe you're the 1% that can hate what you do and be great at it. But generally speaking, find out what you like to do. I personally did not like to do tax returns. Right? I got a chance to do them. I just didn't like it. I wasn't particularly great at it. I couldn't remember the laws. I didn't like the research, and so, but audit I liked, and audit I could zig and zag, and so on and so forth. So, and then again, as I changed as I changed as a person, as I changed in my life, those changes, things changed for me too, is what interests me. So, do you like it now? Do you think you'll like it in the future? Do you like the potential path? How does the path for that? Is that path going to be that you have to travel 195% of the time for 5 or 6 or 7 years, and you don't want to travel? Is that a path that says I have got to constantly be working with numbers and data and have very little human interaction, and that's not what I want? Or do I want more of that, and all I'm doing now is writing reports and giving updates, and I don't like doing that? Everybody's different, and you got to find that strength. When you find that strength, then you'll be able to be great at what you do, world class at what you do. And then, you know, do other people believe you're good at it? You know, what's your horizon timeline as well? You want to start thinking in your world, in your guys' world, right? What was a decade for me? I had a decade to figure out. It's probably 18 months for you. 18 months to 2 years. The world's changing so fast. I've been able to witness it, and it just continues to change fast. Again, 10 years from now, I hope I'm around. I would love to know what some of the topics are. Typical considerations that I see that will make you, and again, this can be applied against all disciplines. Challenging work, pressure. Do you want pressure? Do you not want pressure? Opportunity to grow. And again, opportunity to grow is for you. Are you going to grow? What do you consider growth? You get to define. You're the brand, right? You're the marketing for yourself. What is it that you consider to be growth? Not what somebody else defines. Think about those things. Get those definitions down. Do you like the variety of what you do? Do you want to be more specialized right away? For me, I enjoyed the variety of audit because it allowed me to see hospitals and banks and distribution companies, and then I got to do I got to do inventory observations of, you know, I got on December 31st of 1 year, I got to, it was like, I want to say it was like 5 degrees above zero in central Illinois, and I got to put on a parka, and I got to go up these steps of this fertilizer, these big fertilizer bins, and I had to drop a plumb bob down, and then when I brought it up, it had a little mark on it, and then I went down and got warm, and we measured and did the math to figure out how much fertilizer was in this big thing. We did that like 4 times. I loved it. You know, I got to like travel, I could see what's going on. For me, that was like great. It like expanded, for me, that expanded the balance sheet, the income statement that I was looking at, the numbers, and I could actually visualize it. So I dug that big time. Other people go like, what? I got to go out to central Illinois, it's 5 degrees below zero on New Year's Eve? I don't think so. So what one person's treasure is another person's trash. You got to know what that is. Interpersonal relationships, another issue. Work-life balance. Technology. 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 Don't be afraid of technology as accountants. I remember when my partners in a small firm in the early 90s were just really hesitant to computerize things because we're going to lose control of it. We're going to lose control of it. We're not going to have billable hours. We're going to, all of these things we're doing. At the end of the day, we use it as a tool. Now we try to provide higher value services, right? That's true of every discipline. But know what that technology is. Believe me, understanding the language of business, interpersonal relationships, applying the technical standards. Believe me, and when you get out there, it's not all textbook. A lot of fuzzy stuff. Also, in addition to serving as an expert witness, I'm not a lawyer, but I've been in enough of those that I also get hired as a private arbitrator in mergers and acquisition disputes, okay, where there is an issue as to GAAP or IFRS. So I was hired on a case with two software companies, a buyer and a seller, and there was this issue about software, about when to recognize the revenue. So it was revenue recognition issue, right? Everybody heard revenue recognition, that's like the big buzzword, right? And at the end of the day, you just boil off all the noise and you can figure out what it is, right? Loved it, absolutely loved it. But the technology of it, understanding that technology, I had to bring people on my team and say, all right, how does this work with master licenses and joint ventures with Japan and Asia, and drilling down and understanding where the licenses create revenue and when they don't. Had to do with deferred revenue and the balance of it and so on and so forth. Really, really technical. We embraced it, and again, it was a great opportunity. Variety, technology at its best. Numbers, we're accountants, numbers, right? One of the things that has been it's as true today as it was 35 years ago is that you will do, as an accountant, you will do more writing than you ever thought you were going to do, right? You're going to have to create reports. If you're an audit, you're going to have to create a memo of your findings. Here's what I did, here's what I found. Here are the steps I did, so on and so forth. If you're doing an when I do an investigation, I do a report. Here was the scope of my investigation. Here was the premise of my investigation. Here are the various things that I did to solve those. The premise was proved by, the evidence I found was da-da-da-da-da-da-da. I have to not only write it clearly and concisely, but I have to write it because I'm not a lawyer and I can't make legal conclusions and all the rules of evidence and all that sort of thing. So I do more writing than I do numbers now, and have for a long time. That's one of the biggest things that I think you'll notice when you get out in the field. You're going to notice it out pretty quickly. So if you don't like writing, but there are parts of our profession that are more numbers than writing, and there's stuff that's more writing than numbers. But you'll see that. And I would say, maybe I'll get corrected here on the tax. I'm not bashing tax accounting. I have a tremendous amount of respect for tax people because I stink at it. The numbers that the tax people do, and the crunching of the numbers, and how that all flows, and being able to understand what goes where, that really tends to be more in the analysis and numbers section. What I do, testifying, writing reports, damage claims, etc. Yeah, it's numbers and analysis, but at the end of the day, I submit a report to the court. So finding those things out, right? Do you like giving oral presentations? In my business, I found I enjoyed giving oral presentations. If I was prepared, if I'm not prepared, no, but you got to prepare. Collaborative in nature, collaborative in teamwork. Do you like working with others? Do you like going and just, give me the data, let me figure it out, and I'm going to bring you the answer? There are people that do that. And you shouldn't let anybody tell you, you should do this, you should do that. You got to listen to yourself. What is it that you like to do? What is it that you're good at? Oh, and then I just back up. Continuing education. This probably doesn't belong in strengths and interests, but anything you do, let me tell you something. Your education, and when your formal education ends now, it's really just beginning. First of all, if you're a CPA in this country, and you're going to have 40 hours a year to keep your CPA license up. If If you have certifications, you'll need that too. Even if you don't have that, I strongly encourage you to do it because, again, back to the fast pace of change in the world, you're going to need it more than I did, much more than I did. Preparing for specialization. Here's my continuing education. I think I did that right. Nope, I missed one, didn't I? Yep, okay. Assessing future demand. Okay, I cannot stress enough when you're out in the work, again, we're still on the, I'm here, so I'm in transition, what am I doing? Find a mentor. You don't need to recreate the wheel. There are people, find somebody in your business, find somebody in your school who may be a year or two ahead of you. Let them tell you what to expect. Don't be afraid to ask. Find that mentor, whether they're a very senior person or somebody very close to you. Network consistently. I cannot tell you, who here's on LinkedIn? Wow, fantastic. And then there's, and then of course we have other, that's probably the professional, is there another professional tool like that I'm unaware of? I'd sure like to learn that from you guys. Speak up if you're never home peace.
Handshake.
What is it?
Handshake.
Handshake, I don't know that one. Okay. Shaper is one, S-H-A-P-R, right? I think these are all good. You use Handshake, do you like it? Okay. Just like it sounds, Handshake, one word. All right, there we go. It's important, a lot of accountants, in particular, I've noticed, if we're not in practice development mode or we're not in sales or going on, why do I need to be doing these things? Why do I need to network on LinkedIn? Why do I need to go to the Young Professionals Networking Organization? Why do I need to network with the Beta Gamma Sigma chapter? Why do I need to do these sorts of things? Because it's going to help you grow, number one. It's not all about getting a job, number two. Because what do we talk about? Assessing demand and assessing the future. I talk to people who are corporate accountants, in the corporate arena, and they really get it. It's like, I like to go to corporate accounting conferences because I want to see how are people solving the problems that I'm seeing. And you don't have to recreate the wheel. And what are you doing at your company that I'm trying to aspire to? And did it work? And trying to get those ideas. So I can't stress enough. Network consistently, online career path, or online research, and be flexible. Look at the things you want to specialize in. It's, again, thinking about how I came through my program, how I came through my career. Be prepared when those opportunities come up, right? Be prepared. And again, my favorite, luck is when opportunity meets preparation. Talked about continuing education, experience. There's definitely no substitute for experience. Get as much information as you can about the specific career path, certifications and or degrees. Stay current with the market. Take the initiative. All right. Some big future specialization, some considerations that I see in the marketplace as an investigator and as a forensic accountant, and as an accountant per se. Digital technology, big data, these are all very, very important things for you to grasp onto. The term big data, I have, at Marcum, we have a separate group that we are able to utilize within our group that works for investigations, audit, mergers and acquisitions, analysis, etc. And all they do is big data conversions, right? I mean, this is massive, right? Being able to take PDFs and crunch them down into numerical, sortable, like millions and millions of pages. This is crazy stuff. In addition to, obviously, downloading data in its actual native format. It's going to be important as accountants that we have a grasp of how that all works. Blockchain applications. I know blockchain and the various currencies, cryptocurrencies are depressed now. But that technology just came to market a little different. I think you're going to see those applications really be important. Jumping down a little bit to money laundering and cybercrime, I get involved in that respect. I bring in people onto my team, and we are actually looking at digital technology, the dark web. We're looking at some of those things that law enforcement is already looking at, and because we're looking for the technology that is being utilized by perpetrators. I'm not a computer science person, but I have to have a working knowledge of that. You will as well, even more so. And again, stay up on that. Think about those kind of things and how you can harness those. Money laundering, I mentioned money laundering, huge issue. Not only whenever we think about money laundering, we're typically thinking about drug money laundering, but there's also terrorism, right? That is huge, right? And the things that are happening in money laundering as far as enforcement and the things that it's called FinCEN, things that are happening that require companies to know what they're doing. If you're on top of that, you can add value. I'm getting ahead of myself, but there's a certification you can get in money laundering, which is fascinating as well. The finance folks, another good one for you. Accounting and finance, again, brother, sister, cousin. Those are two great, my MBAs in finance and my undergrads in accounting, and those two are great partnership. Business valuations, I mentioned that earlier. Business valuations are necessary for a number of reasons. Number one, mergers and acquisitions, which is how I started doing it. Number two, business divorces. Partner A doesn't like what partner B is doing, and they want a buyout. They want a forced buyout. They have a contract, they have a shareholder agreement. It doesn't jive. They take it to a lawyer, they sue. Boom, I get hired to do business valuations. Business valuations, a lot of finance there, finance, economics, accounting. Accounting will really help you there. The vast majority of people I see doing business valuation in the testimony phase are going to be accountants. Language of business, very, very important. And again, you can do what I do, damage expert in litigation. An example of a typical case for me is a theft of trade secrets case that I've done a number of those, where CFO and a chief operating officer decide that they want to take the trade secret of the company that they're in and basically start their own business and sell on their own and take all of the trade secrets that have been developed with patented technology and so on and so forth. And I get in there and figure out what the damages are based upon the profit, understanding contribution margin versus gross profit versus incremental costs, all those things, the language of business, right? That's why I'm a damage expert in litigation, because I know how to do those sorts of things. And you do too. Certifications. Just some additional certifications. I don't hold all of these, thank goodness. I have a few of these that I need for what I do. One of the biggest ones I see that I really I have a lot of respect for is the CFA, Chartered Financial Analyst. I know the finance people know that one. It takes about 3 years to get. It's quite an examination. And by the way, I'm assuming that all the accountants are going to get their CPA. I highly encourage you to get that. So Chartered Financial Analyst is really helpful in mergers and acquisitions, in bankruptcy, in restructuring, etc. Certified Fraud Examiner, and what I do, for those of you going into law enforcement, I go to the Association of Certified Fraud Examiners annual event. This year was in Austin, and we had Interpol there, we had the FBI there, we had SEC, all members, right? Again, we have law enforcement, you have non-law enforcement, but they're all CFEs, Certified Fraud Examiners. Just another tool in the tool chest besides having the certification. Certified Anti-Money Laundering Specialist, CAMS. You're going to see a lot of that activity in banks, right? Banks have a tremendous amount of pressure on them to make sure transactions are above board. They have to report to the federal government. Suspicious activity is called SAR, Specific Activity Report. When I was at Navigant, we had a huge amount of consulting activity for banks that didn't follow that, and we had to go in and months and months and months and months with banks. So, very, very good one. Certified Insolvency and Restructuring Advisor called a CIRA. Again, very lucrative, very, even in a good market, you still have a lot of that. Chartered Global Management Accountant, CGMA, that's issued by a joint venture with the AICPA and I'll think of the other organization. Again, I've done work in China, I've done work in Europe, I've done work in Latin America, and you know what? I have to understand IFRS, right? I have to understand those differences. accredited business valuation, certified divorce financial analyst. If you're in a smaller firm that you get involved in divorce work, that'd be good too. Personal financial planner, and then again, certified in financial forensics. So there's a litany of things. I would say, again, find out what your interests are, figure out what you want to do, look at these specializations you can get into, industry, functional, etc. But the most important thing I can tell you is assess your strengths and your interests regularly. What am I good at? What do I like to do? How do they align to what the market's telling me they like about me? Prepare to change your mind. I went down this path, you know what? I don't like it anymore. Or my situation changed. I want to spend more time with my family. Or I decided I want to go to Europe, work in Europe. Or I want to do more global. Listen to yourself and make those changes. Understand that you can't have that flexibility, and you define what it is that career means to you. Use and understand technology, and again, don't be afraid of technology. Accounts are going to be in demand. The language of business. The future is bright. I can't wait to be here in 10 years. Hopefully they'll invite me. Thank you very much.
We have some time for questions.
Okay.
So do we still have the mics lined up? Yeah. So we have some, probably 10 minutes or so for questions. Great. If anybody has some. Why don't we start over here, the young lady over here.
Okay.
What's your name? Where are you from?
My name is Kayla, and I'm from the University of Southern Mississippi. So I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Going through the accounting program, they kind of push tax, audit, pick one and decide what you want to do. How would you advise us to learn the different specialties and maybe see if there's something else we'd want to look into?
It's a great question. And it was like that 35 years ago for me too, okay? Here's what I would say. Audit, and I think you saw, those were my top two inside of public accounting, right? Audit and tax. It's a great entry to the profession. The thing about audit, I'm going to try to answer your question, but the thing about audit and tax it's a great way for you to be general and then figure out that specialty and be flexible. So I would say, they can't hit every they can talk about special areas, and I think a lot of programs have forensic accounting now, right? Okay. But it's very unlikely that you would go directly into forensic accounting. So I would say continue to talk to your professors, continue to take opportunities for those kind of classes, and network, and with people like me and your fellow students who may be a year or two ahead of you and are going in a different direction.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
How's it going? My name is Colin Roach, and I'm from Emporia State University in Kansas, and I'm a master's accounting degree student.
Great.
My question is actually in regards to something that I'd like to do in my future. I want to be a tax attorney, and so I have a full-time offer in Wichita, Kansas, and they pretty much told me I can do whatever I want, so I think I like tax the best, just because of my personality. But knowing that the reason that you get in trouble with the IRS is because they audit you, would you recommend that I pursue tax and audit, or just try to be predominantly in tax, per se? Or what would you recommend for my future?
I have a strong opinion about that.
Okay.
I think as a tax attorney, that's all you need.
Okay.
Because audit is going to be the audit of the fair presentation of financial statements for purposes of generally accepted auditing standards. Totally different than an IRS audit. I think if you stay on the path and become a tax attorney, you'll be great.
Okay.
LLM probably after your law degree, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I'm working on my master's in accountancy. I'm going to get my master's in taxation. Then I plan to go to law school and get my JD as well.
That's perfect.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Hi. Over here.
Oh, yes, ma'am.
My name is Edith. Edith, Lagos Business School, Nigeria. I'm not an accountant. I worked in a bank for a couple of years in marketing function. But I have a lot of interest in finance. I think it came about with the MBA. So I'm hoping to transition out of the bank, but I'm looking towards more of like developmental finance kind of job. So my question is, I've seen all the certifications, like the one that comes to mind easily is the CFA certification. However, my interest is in helping small businesses grow through not giving them loans, but giving them an idea as to how they can harness opportunities around them. So what would you suggest I do? Do you think I should go and pursue CFA, or what do you think? What's your suggestion?
Great question. And this is the murky area, right? I think you need to find somebody that does what you want to do and ask them how they got there, right? In other words, somebody who is pick the job that you want and find out their career path to get there so that you don't have to recreate the wheel. And I also don't think, to your point, you're in banks right now, right?
Yeah, I want to leave the bank. I'm just done with the banking. So
Right.
I'm trying to see how to take it into something more significant,
Right.
something that touches my heart.
Right. Yeah. So the trick is like do you want to jump out of banking and into immediately, or do you want to do something to be able to use your bank experience to transition into what you do? It's a tricky question because it could be either one. Because you may need to just take a right turn and just, okay, here's banking, I'm going to go this way, instead of just bending, right? It just depends upon how radical the change is and what your own situation is. Biggest thing is, you're not out there alone. Ask somebody, find a mentor, and not just one, maybe 2 or 3. Absolutely. Who's next?
Let's go right.
Yes.
Hello, my name is Weiss. I'm from SIUE.
Hey, I'm under day. Yeah, I recognize the shirt.
You talked about additional certifications we can get, and I want to specialize in audit, maybe consulting. I didn't know if you found additional certifications to be helpful while pursuing audit.
Great question. They didn't have additional certifications when I was a young auditor, so I have to juxtapose myself in today's world. We have young auditors now who the natural accreditation for them to get is a CFE. Okay. Because of the SAS 99. Am I familiar with SAS 99? Fraud, right? In CPAs, you're held accountable for understanding that there was or wasn't fraud, even though your tests are not designed for fraud. You would say that. That being said, if you're a CFE and a CPA with audit background, that would be an easy certification that would dovetail into audit. Okay. The ABV, CFF, the other things I have are primarily for testimony, testifying in front of juries and stuff, and so for forensics and valuation and that sort of thing. But CFE would be a strong one.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hello,
Yes.
my name is Jennifer, and I'm from Michigan Technological University.
Hi, Jennifer.
The vast majority of us,
Yes.
and you suggest to yourself that we take them, but why do you think the CPA exam is being pushed more so than even some of the other certificates?
I passed the CPA exam 35 years ago, and when I testify in front of a jury, having that CPA is more important than all the rest of my designations from the public perceptions part. Thank goodness I don't have to take that exam every year or every 2 years. I wouldn't be a CPA anymore. That being said, I think that serves as a great foundation. It's universally recognized. The test itself is across all 50 states. And of course, it's recognized worldwide. So, and it's, if you get it, not everybody gets it. It's hard to get. And then of course you're required to have continuing education. A lot of certifications you don't have to.
Thank you.
Let's do this one last question here before the herds are coming from the other breakout sessions. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Grace Kinder from West Virginia University. And I had questions about pursuing CPA versus going into getting a master's program. So I'm graduating with 150 credit hours, so I'll be CPA eligible out of undergrad. I was wondering if you recommended still going and getting a master's in something or pursuing other certifications.
So the question is, you have 150 hours and you don't need a master's degree. Should you get a master's degree? I'd say it depends. I think if you flash forward 10 or 15 years from now and you go, I have 150 hours and It depends. For me, I enjoyed getting an MBA and master's, in finance. It helped me, and I'm glad I did it. And it distinguishes me sometimes, right? But because back when I was a CPA, there wasn't the 150-hour rule, so we could do it at 120. I think it depends on your timeline. Yeah, but I think there's nothing wrong with being recognized for the achievement, and getting a master's degree is a very special thing. So, thank you. You're welcome. We done?
I think so. So one of the things I really appreciate about your presentation and sharing the depth and breadth of your experience and just showing all these different opportunities, 'cause I'm sure you guys see that in school too, but a lot of what comes out of some of the research is, that artificial intelligence is taking over accounting and, how that's going to change. And I like that you have the future is bright and, the digital competence is still going to be very important and the certifications and all the things that you need to be successful in the field. And so with the experience you have in sharing that knowledge with them, we really appreciate it. And I hope it's been as beneficial. I learned a lot, and I'm not an accountant, so I learned a lot, so thank you for that.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
If you guys want to grab a quick break before we'll start the next session while everybody else is moving in.